I'm joined today here on Primetime Local News with W.L. Hawkins. She's a Canadian author, and we're here to talk about her newest novel that's out now. But before we get into that, can you just tell us a little bit more about yourself?
I'm a Vancouver-based author. I'm actually living in an eco-village outside of Vancouver on a dairy farm, or an old dairy farm that's now an organic farm. It's very nice out in the mountains. And I have a series that I've been working on for the last few years called the Hollystone Mysteries. It's about a group of witches who solve murders, and it's just kind of blossomed into its own thing.
And the next book in that series is out now. It's called To Kill a King. Can you just tell our viewers a little bit more about that novel?
Sure. The king is actually a real king from 200 BC. I made him up a little bit, but the archaeological evidence is there. So what happened with that book was I was looking through a National Geographic one night, and I saw the mummified fist and torso. I don't know if you've ever seen those pictures that are online, and he has this amazing fist. He's 2,000 years old, but it's still there. He's still wearing a leather armband with copper plates, and it just struck me that I wanted to know what happened to him, and I wanted to know what his life was like. So I started doing a lot of research on it, and ended up going to Ireland. But what happens in the book is my character, who's an archaeologist, actually gets the opportunity to go to Ireland herself. She time travels with the ancient horn god Cernunnos and ends up in Ireland and gets to meet him. And then, because she's already has the knowledge of what happens to him, she knows he's going to be ritually murdered. She wants to save him, of course. So it becomes this game of trying to beat the Druid warriors to save the life of this man that she falls in love with in 200 BC Ireland.
Now, you mentioned this a little bit, but you like to travel when you're doing research about different locales, when you're writing novels. Can you just talk a little bit about what kind of traveling you had to do for this particular novel?
Well, yeah, this one I really enjoyed it a lot. I had done a lot of work with Dr. Eamon Kelly's Kingship and Sacrifice work, and then he set up the museum in the National Museum in Ireland. So I went there to Dublin, and I spent about a week in the museum, sitting in the museum with the mummified body, trying to, get him to talk to me, trying to hear what his name was and all kinds of things like that. Mm-hmm. And then I also spent another few days in a library downtown, going through everything I could find on Iron Age Ireland. And that's not a lot because, this was an oral culture, right? So there's not a lot written down. So at one point I had a list of things that were from the archaeological record and things I had imagined. And then I have to kind of just put the whole thing together, right? And then I went to several prehistoric sites in Ireland, like Newgrange and Tara and Ishnack, which are all fantastic places. And Ishnack, for example, is another inauguration hill in the center of Ireland where they do tours, and it's just gorgeous. So I went there to see what that would be like. And then I actually went to Croggan Hill. This is where my king was inaugurated at the top of the hill and then ritually murdered, and his body parts put in the bog around the base of the hill. And I really wanted to go there because I wanted to see what he would have seen from the top of that hill. Landscapes change, but the hill would have been there, and the view would have been there, and the energy would have been there. So I took all of that and let it stew for a couple of years.
Now, one thing I like to ask authors quite often is kind of, who do you think would be the ideal reader for this book, or who would really enjoy reading this book? Can you kind of fulfill that answer for me today?
I can, and I think it's something that it spans a fair amount of age process, for sure. I mean, it can go from like teenagers to wherever. And people who are interested in history and prehistory, but I also write urban fantasy. So there's that whole piece of it that has gods and druids and fairies and spell casting and all those kinds of things in it. So if you're into anything pagan, that again is another piece of it for you. Yeah.
And for people who are interested in picking up a copy of this book, where are they able to do so? And I'm assuming they're also able to get some other copies of the other parts of this series as well if they're interested in it.
For sure, for sure. One thing I've got on my website, which is bluehavenpress.com, is a where to buy books page, because there's so many different places to buy right now. And so my books are all on the major retailers, of course, but I also will send signed copies out to people, and if they're in Canada and the States, and mail them to them.